So, take me back to when you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, your father owned this farm,
Yep.
and he was planting fruit trees, right?
Yeah, well...
And grapes, too, right?
Yeah. So I'll go back a little bit further. My grandfather came here from UC Davis. Yes, I've been around, like, not hard on the campus, but my father actually grew up out there for a little bit and lived there. So when we went out to Sacramento for the trade show in 2003, which was my first time going out west, and when I was thinking about getting into the grapes and wine industry, I took a trip out there and we saw his childhood house and went around. So it was kind of neat.
That's awesome.
The neighborhood he lived in.
Did he live in Sac, or did he live in Davis?
Davis, I believe. It was Davis.
And so
it was 03, because it was right around because I wanted no part of the farm.
you didn't.
I wanted no part at all. But what changed it was in actually the winter of 03, before we went out west, my roommate from college was working on the farm with me. He wanted to just do during winter break.
Right.
And we're out in the field, and I'm running the tractor, and we're removing an old vineyard. And he's on the ground pulling out the posts. And you know how a Buffalo winter storm can come in. It's beautiful. All of a sudden, it's just a snowstorm. We're in our Carhartt overalls. I'm on the tractor. I can't even see him from the tractor to where he's doing wrapping the chains in the snow to rip these posts out. And he goes, "You're the luckiest guy in the world." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm sitting on the tractor." Because you're down there, I'm up here. Yeah, I get to drive the tractor. He's like, "Look how beautiful this is. You get to work out in the nature. You get to and you know, it's snowing down, but
it doesn't matter. It's probably beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, but at that time it was like, and I'm sitting up there and it was like, you know what? I am pretty damn lucky and fortunate to kind of be in this atmosphere, in the country, on the farm, have this, and it was at that moment that it was like, all right, maybe I'll go back to the farm. I'll give it a try. I'll do something with agriculture because it is pretty.
It's spectacular.
And
it
I'm
really
lucky
is.
to be here. Yeah. And so then that was in December, January, and then I want to say we went out to Sacramento for that trip, and shortly after that. And so I finished up my degree, and I came back to the farm, and my issue was I was trying to make it like an 8 to 3 job or a 9 to 4 job. Yeah. And
you can't. It's a life.
And coming
job.
right out of college, I wasn't ready for it, and it didn't fit with me. So my dad and I didn't really see eye to eye, and an opportunity came up with a winery down the road that we've sold our grapes to for 20, 30 years.
Really?
So that's why I went there. Their winemaker had just left after 23 years, and my dad was dropping grape samples off, and the owner said, "Well, we need a cellar hand or a winemaker if you know anyone." And my dad came back, and he kind of read between the lines that the farming wasn't really lining up with me.
Right.
And he said, "Hey, there's a winemaker opening or a cellar hand. Go and put your application in." I'm like, "Oh, cool." He's like, "No, go put your application in." So,
dude, you know what's funny though? Because my dad was the same way. Because they know.
Yeah.
You know,
when the passion's not there the same, or you're not ready. I mean, you know, and my dad's very, although he's like a bit stoic, he's very intelligent. He knows the situation. He's a good reader. So I really admire and look up to him. It kind of went from there. But growing up with my grandfather, coming back from UC Davis. Coming to this area, landing, working for Cornell Extension, running all of the agriculture extension agencies through Erie. My grandfather did.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Trenny Jordan. And then my father went to Cornell and got his degree and worked in the lab, and then in the 80s came back to the farm because working in the lab wasn't his thing. He didn't like to be contained.
Right.
So he's the one that really grew the farm in the 80s from the original 12-acre home farm from the early 60s when my grandpa got back.
So he kept on annexing land? He would buy the land
my father kept adding on land in partnership with my grandfather. I mean, without my grandfather in the picture, my father probably wouldn't be where he was.
Right.
But the same so my grandfather gave my father the opportunities, like my father's given me the opportunities.
But you know what? That's how
it works.
One of the most important things about this show isn't just to show what you do, but it's your lineage and how these businesses are built.
Yeah.
And we're part of generations that we were at the start of the computer age, and everything's quick and everything's instant, and people forget how long it takes to build a business like this.
Absolutely.
And
And
how many millions of man hours over 50,
right,
60 years.
elbow grease and sacrifices, and my father, he still works way more than he should. But even growing up as a kid, he worked more than he should, but he was always there
But
for
he loves
football.
it too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he was always there for you.
He really was.
That's a big
he
deal.
was there.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was the amazing part. That he helped coach midget football, and he was there for the football games. And when we decided to go off to Erie for school, my mother drove us, but he was there for the sports games.
That's awesome.
So somehow he managed to make it work.
Right.
Because I'm struggling with that as a young father.
Well, you have 4 kids?
Yeah, 4 kids under the age of 7 and an 8-year-old business.
Are the kids? They got to be, because there's 4 under 7. They're a year and a half apart.
So I go 7, 5, 3, and 16 months.
Phooey.
And they all have their name tags. They all come here. They love to help out on
that's
the
awesome.
weekend. They kind of fight who gets to come in with dad on the weekend to work.
Really? Yeah, but I mean, this is a gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
place to
they
come.
taste the juice. I give them the tough task. They got to take care of the garbage. They got to clean glasses. They got to move stuff.
That's what I did.
Then they get to do like, okay, we'll ride the forklift a little bit or do something. But you got to get these things
Get
done
the jobs
first.
done first.
Yeah,
And then you're
and
off.
then but they love it, and they interact with customers. I mean, our kids are always around customers, so they're very good at school. They interact with the adults
Keeps them
better
sociable,
yeah,
sure,
they're very
sure.
social. My son's the mayor of the neighborhood, so.
Are you guys in Erie, or are you here?
No, we are actually in Fredonia. So
Wow.
we moved to Fredonia 2 years ago, which was difficult because we had a home on the farm.
Right.
But we outgrew the house and the
Yeah, well,
schooling.
there's 6 of you, so.
So we had to make those decisions, which was very difficult for me and the family, but we did it.
Yeah.
Coming back to where we were, I came back to the farm, worked for another winery for 10 years in Northeast at Presque Isle Wine Cellars, which was absolutely the perfect fit to have trial by fire and just learn everything.
To get you from point A to point B, and point B being here.
Absolutely. A bit of an old school history, working with new stuff, access to all the different winemaking techniques and additives because they were supplier to home winemakers.
Right.
The conversations with home winemakers that came in. So learning things just on the fly and getting all those experiences
Sure.
that
You can take those if you
you
got
wouldn't normally get.
Sure.
But because I was able to interact with all these guys, you learn like, oh, that little trial or this worked or this didn't work.
Right.
So I picked up all these things that and winemaking, whether you're making a 5-gallon home jug at home
Sure.
or you're making 20,000 gallons in a tank, it's just scale. We're all doing the same thing. So
Right.
it's just scale.
You know what? It's the same thing in my business. Whether we do this show or it's national, it's all the same. It's just scale. Right?
Yeah.
As long as you got the techniques down,
Yeah.
you're all good. And now, speaking of that, so when you went down to Prescott, you weren't a winemaker at that point?
At that point, I wasn't. I had made 30 gallons at the farm here the 1 year before.
Because none of this was here. That's my
The winery wasn't here, but the grapes.
The
and
grapes
farm,
were,
yeah.
right? But you didn't. I mean, what we
No,
look
there was
at-
no winery.
Yeah.
Across the street in our shop, the farm shop.
Right.
I made like 30 gallons of Syrah and Blanc Frankish and some kegs and some garbage cans.
Was this price? you did it at garbage, like
Yeah.
straight old school.
Yeah, old
like-
school. That was my first batch.
But that's how you should start.
yeah,
if you're
the
gonna do
wine
this.
didn't turn out at all. It was horrible. I didn't know, no clue what I was doing.
you didn't know what you're doing, sure.
My dad had made wine before, and he won quite a few awards at the county fairs and stuff.
Really?
He did that for a while.
So did he make it old school like that too? when he made
Well, he
it?
said this is what you need, and then I went from there.
And you
then
just
he
figured it
kinda
out.
Is like, you need to figure this out. If you're interested, that's your thing.
Right.
And so he's taken the approach. Although he's very a big role model, he's great in that you gotta learn things on your own.
Right.
And he doesn't like micromanage or overstep. Even with this operation, even though he's a partner, I would say he's silent. He only says like the hypercritical things that need to be done.
Yes.
He helped pick the color for the room here. He's colorblind though. So
Good job. Though. Now, but that leads me to ask you, because when we first met, you told me that you had went to Australia and Germany, and then what was that about? Was that part of this process where you made
So
your
as part of
garbage
this
can
growing-
wine, and you're like, this is hard, and I need to figure
the
it out.
evolution of Chris, yes. So when I went to Presque Isle, I didn't have the dream of opening a winery at that point.
You didn't.
I just wanted to do something in agriculture that dealt with grapes, and I thought it was a value of working with my dad grapes
Right.
at Presque Isle. We sold a lot of grapes there. So I thought I was doing a good thing if I make good wine there. I'm moving that, I'm gonna do that. And it was about 4 years in, from 2005 to about 3 years, 2008, I decided, you know what, I think I can make award-winning wine. I'd been getting a lot of accolades already. I went from just a cellar hand to being the head winemaker within 3 weeks of being hired at Presque Isle.
Are you kidding me?
I was reading the book, How to Make Wine for Dummies, literally that night, and then going to work the next day. And the owner was very hands-off, but also knew well quite a bit. And there was a good group around me.
I love that. And that's this show, that's so many of the businesses that we do. You'd be surprised well, you wouldn't because you're that type of person.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way. Like when I started this, I was doing a children's book company and I wandered into a TV station, and it's a long story and I'll spare you, but they ended up offering me a deal and I went home and I got yelled at for a half hour by my wife because she's like, there's no way we could do this. And I was like, we have to do this.
Right. I already said okay.
Yeah, I did. I said, okay. They said, do you have a demo? I was like, I have nothing. They said, well, bring us back a couple treatments in a couple weeks. And I went home and got yelled at.
Right?
Yeah, we converted our house. It was madness, but we got it done.
That is
figured
awesome.
it out.
Yeah.
But it was the same thing for you. Like you just had to figure out how I'm going to do this, and you did.
And I wasn't afraid to work. I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty.
That's what it is. Right.
So I was spending 15, 16 hours. Thankfully, I didn't have a family or a wife at that point.
Sure.
I was still dating the same woman that I luckily married.
Awesome.
But yeah, so it was this very like steep learning curve in the most complex facility and operation that you could imagine or get into, because they dealt with, there's so many things with, they were distributing juice, they were making their own wine, they were selling fresh grapes. We were processing it all. All what I'm doing now, in a weird way, what I wanted to get out of there, because it took away from the actual love of making wine, because I did all the other things.
Right.
But as I've come here and we've built in,
you realize the integration of that's not as crazy as
right.
it
It's
seems.
not that tough.
Right.
And done a little differently. I really love it. So I learned a lot. So working with that was the best, and it was probably 2008. I had an opportunity to go down to Australia to work a harvest down there.
Where were you down there?
I was in Victoria, but 2 hours north of Melbourne in Heathcote. A nice, warm, hot area, a brand new facility, state of the art. They were making just shy of 1 million gallons of Shiraz.
Wow.
Brand new facility. It was awesome.
So now you go down there, and you're working. Mm-hmm. So that's how you got down there, obviously. But once you're down there, you're working every day.
I was working.
You're
We were
hustling.
40 minutes away from the nearest grocery store.
There's nothing else to do.
I lost like 40 pounds.
Wait, it's 105 degrees every day.
I'm getting all back. Yeah. So it was awesome, but it was a brand new state-of-the-art facility. And when I went into that, my thought was, I want to learn a hot climate winemaking. I wanted to have a different outsider view and not just cool climate winemaking like I already had in this experience.
Gotcha.
So it gave me a both sides perspective. But I also wanted to see, what is winemaking? Not thinking what I was doing at Presque Isle was like, this isn't really winemaking, but it was.
It was, right.
It absolutely was.
Because I think we all have this connotation. That's when I was in Sonoma.
When's your first time you just don't know?
Yeah, you're just like, well, this is what it's supposed to be. And you don't realize that here is just as viable and just as valid as anywhere else in the world.
Right.
So now you're down in Australia for how long? A year?
So just there shy of a year. I worked through their vintage, and then I did some like leisure time. I backpacked up the Gold Coast.
How could you not?
My wife came, my then girlfriend came down and visited in Australia.
That's
and we did,
an
the
awesome
fun
trip.
stuff, and tried surfing and skydiving. And
Did you get to see? You got to see the reef before
we
it
went up
died.
I skydived over the Great Barrier Reef,
Oh my
and
God.
we snorkeled in the Great Barrier Reef, and whitewater raft up there.
Did you skydive into the water?
No, I landed on the beach.
Oh, okay,
outside of Cairns. Yeah,
beautiful.
so it was a really cool experience. And it was when I decided I knew I needed to marry my wife, because we had bought the skydiving trips as a package, and we went snorkeling the day before, and the salt water had melted like the contacts to her eyes pretty much. They dried, she never took them out.
Oh.
So the skydiving bus had to drive her and drop her off at the hospital
Oh my God.
I was like, okay, well, you drop her off at the hospital. I need to go skydiving. I only have one chance in the lifetime to do this. So it really wasn't a great move on my part, but it was the move that I made at that point.
Sure. Well, you're young.
I land on the beach, come onto the sand, I unstrap, and it's at the hotel we're staying at, and there's my wife sitting at a table with her eyes running with goop on her eyes from the contacts being peeled off, and she had all this, and she's got tears streaming out her eyes, and
You were like,
And we talked, and mind you, she wasn't happy, but it was
Sure.
that point that I knew like I needed to marry this woman because she puts up with me.
She put up with it. That's an awesome
so
story.
it was kind of neat, and so someday I'll get her back there to go skydiving.
Yeah, right.
And,
Yeah, because you owe her one.
I owe her one. Yeah.
You owe her one on
Although
that
she
one.
didn't want to do the skydiving, she didn't want to do the whitewater rafting, but they're like, "You want to do the upgrade to the extreme package?" And I was like, "Yeah, we're doing
We're
it."
doing it.
And she looked at me like, "We are." So I think this is how she got out of the skydiving, but we'll make it back.
That's all. Yeah, I've had contacts stuck to my eyes for 4 days once, and it's painful.
Yeah.
And you have like this terrible eye headache.
Oh, it was, yeah,
it was
horrible.
bad.
And she'd cut her corneas. Yeah, so with the way she took them off, so
dude.
it was worse.
Ugh,
So Australia.
poor girl.
Yeah, and then she flew back.
Well, then you
now it's
married
by
her.
herself.
Yeah,
so-
she's a trooper, man.
2010, July 3rd, 2010, we got married.
Wow. Congratulations.
But yeah, so
That's
after spending my time in Australia, learning basically scale production because it was so much bigger.
Okay.
And that the machinery is just bigger, but it's the same process. I came back and I went to Prescott. They hired me back.
So Prescott, Australia, back to Prescott.
Prescott Island, Northeast, yes. And worked there for a little bit because I still didn't have a winery. I started putting my business plan together while I was in Australia. It was quiet. I was by myself. I was under the stars, looking at the Southern Cross.
Dreaming anyways, man. Let's dream the dream.
Yeah, working on a
Right.
business plan. My brother at that point was involved, and so we're emailing back and forth. Family venture to put this business plan together. And so when I got back, it kind of moved forward a little bit. In 2010, we really knew we were doing it. We got married in July, broke ground, and right around that point
So
as
you
well.
got married,
Broke
and then
ground,
started a family,
and then had our grand opening, and a month later, my son was born, my
Wow.
first son. So it just kind of all hit the
a
ground running.
life grew.
Yeah,
like that.
And
right?
so my mom and I and my father, we designed the building here. This is our layout. We knew what we wanted. We traveled, as I was mentioning, to California, other areas. After Prescott, before I opened this, I was able to do an educational tour through Germany, meet some pretty high-end winemakers, see what their operations
Same
were.
premise. I got to go explore and experiment.
Exactly,
and see where we
and
are.
that was a true cool climate at that point. So it was apples to apples, seeing like how they're doing cool climate viticulture and winemaking, and how that could apply to our winemaking here.
Completely applicable.
Yep.
Right.
And so I picked up some tidbits and information there, contacts, point of contacts, and people to reach out to if I have questions. And really, Germany lines up with
Very similar,
Yeah, very
right.
similar. So there's a lot of things that cross over.
Wow.
But then we put the business plan together, went to the bank, got everything.
Are we okay on time still?
Yeah, we're running good. We got about 10 minutes.
Okay, awesome.
And then everything went from there. We broke ground, opened. We started with about 2,000 cases, about 5,000 gallons, which I worked with
how did
Prescott.
you start? But see, for me, like that's fascinating. So just to even get this going, because this was part of the business plan from day one, right?
Yeah.
We needed a tasting room. We needed a facility to build all this. So how many tanks did you have? A couple tanks or one
We
tank?
had, when I had 8 tanks, but we didn't. So the original plan was to open in April, March
Okay.
of 2012.
Okay.
We got about July of 2011.
Okay.
And my father goes, "We need to be open by September." That's the busy time.
You're like,
So
all
let's
right.
just say at that point, rubber hit the road. We just went all in.
Awesome.
And it was a true joint effort, family, the contracts we had. So the front end tasting room was really the focus to open. The back production area was to come along as we go. Due to my time with Prescott, they were great. The beautiful thing about this industry, you all know each other, and
Right.
even though we're all competitors, we're all allies, and
Yes.
people really work together and pay it forward. I mean,
Right.
Prescott let me
Well,
utilize their facility to make and bottle my wine when I first opened up, utilize their tanks, process there, bring stuff back here. And then, so it was a slow 1-year process to build up here till we got production.
Right.
And 2012, 2013, we really ramped it up.
That's awesome.
And
Well, they say like a high tide floats all ships, right?
And that is true.
And that's what
And-
happens. I
yeah.
mean, you're in this. It's like I was in the indie record business for a long time, and it's the same thing. It
Yeah.
really, there almost isn't really any competition because you are all struggling. You're all,
Yeah.
and you're all in this like boat
bubble. Yeah,
nobody really understands it either. This
Right.
is the type of business that if you're in this business, you're in this business.
Right.
It's not a cursory business.
Right. We
This
all
is,
know each other's business. We're all
Right.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And we all need each other. We're
Yes.
all allies.
Yeah.
Because my own facility, whether how grand or how perfect I think this facility is, I'm not drawing 30,000 people out here just to visit me.
exactly.
I need those other
Right.
23 members to be a draw that brings 35,000, 40,000 visitors to this area.
That's why we chose to do these shows, because
Yeah.
it's all about all of you guys. This is a collective.
Yeah.
You guys, and I told Bill this from Merrick, like,
Yeah.
you guys you remind me of this, of almost like the computer industry in the Valley.
Yeah.
When I study that, because there's this group of dedicated people that have changed the face, like Bill changed the legislation
Absolutely.
to even have this here.
Yeah.
And when you go all the way back to Bill doing that, all the way to now, you think about this is all built on the shoulders of all those guys.
Absolutely.
You know?
And they did it through very difficult times.
Yeah,
I mean,
right, it
when New
wasn't-
York
right.
wine was not even a. New York wine wasn't
Yeah,
even
what?
a blip.
Yeah,
And
what are you
here,
talking about?
the likes of Bill Merritt, Fred Johnson, Bob Mazza, Doug Moorhead, these pioneers that pushed Woodbury, that really pushed
Sure.
it. When I joined the trail, I had 18,000 visitors step through this door, and I think
Wow.
I'm sitting on the board with them now. I'm president of the Lake Erie Wine Trail now.
You are?
I am.
Awesome.
And Bill Merritt's on the board with me, and I thank him. I mean, without them doing what they did,
Sure.
I couldn't start the way that I did. And we have the opportunities that I have because of what they did for 10, 20 years.
And I told Bill that, and as awesome as he is, he was so humble
He's
about
very
it.
humble
He
about
didn't
it.
even want me to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, Bill, I have to address
Yeah.
this. Like because he was telling me the story about getting in his car and doing all this other stuff. And there was no industry here.
Right. And it wasn't like it was easy. It was a struggle.
Yeah.
Financial, everything else, struggle. I mean, those stories are there.
And I love them because
and-
it's important
yeah.
to capture them.
But it's what made this area, and then you had, everyone else start coming on. We're in a big wave now, And since I've been open, there's probably been 8 wineries that opened within a 10-year window.
You know what I love? I love when I come home from this area and I see all you guys with
Our
tons of
signs
people.
and-
Yeah,
and
dude, it's
we're
nice.
full, yeah.
Because I love it. Because I love seeing that people are recognizing this, and you guys are. Because listen, the amount of work and amount of money and effort that this took is mind blowing.
Yeah.
And you did it, and people are enjoying it now.
Yeah, no, and that's the most rewarding part, is seeing the customers come here and enjoying it. And in some ways, I'm a little uncomfortable when you see someone wear your shirt or they're buying your wine. You're like, oh man,
Because you're
thank
just,
you.
you're
Yeah,
just
I'm just one
Yeah.
with you. And
Yeah.
and you hear on the street or have our big pink elephant out front. You see pictures and friends of friends talk about it.
Okay, now I can't even believe I didn't even address this. And if you would have left and we didn't talk about this, I would have been kicking myself.
Yeah.
So what is with the elephants?
So the elephants, there's 2 stories. So the elephant that we have outside our facility, the bright pink elephant, was originally acquired to showcase the entrance to our Pick Your Own Cherry Orchard, because the orchard was located off the road.
Okay.
And my father has a unique personality as well, and he wanted something that was big and unique that stood out to showcase the entrance to that driveway.
you can't miss
when
it.
we broke ground over here, we moved the elephant to this side and we put our banner up saying coming soon.
Right.
At that point, we had a big trailer with a 500-gallon 500-gallon oak barrel on a trailer,
Oh,
so
wow.
it looked like the elephant was
Right.
towing it. He painted it bright yellow, which did not go over too well. And then during our grand opening, we released Elataba, which was a pink Catawba wine. And I was remodeling my house at the same time, and I was in Home Depot, and I saw sexy pink paint color. And I said, that's it. I came back and spent the next 12 hours painting Ella. She was bright pink.
No kidding.
I can officially say I've given a pachyderm a manicure and a pedicure. It's
awesome.
kind of become our shtick. I mean, it's a land, a piece where everyone knows where it is, a marker. Everyone, when I think a beautiful building, no one recognizes or knows the building. You say elephant, I know where it is. I think I
genius.
could have put a shed up and I would have been fine with the elephant up front.
No, dude, it's genius. Yeah.
But my my grandfather on my mom's side was an international pharmaceutical sales rep, and he traveled the world. And when he was out on business, he always bought an elephant to bring back to my Oma.
Wow.
So we had a great collection. And if you look through the facility, there's
I've seen
elephants
them, right?
laced throughout the building.
Yep.
And some of that are his private collection. When he passed, my Oma gave us the elephants because of the elephant up front. So there is like a side story into it that's a little
big deal.
more personal. But the elephant up front is just kind of hey, here we are.
Dude, it worked. I'm telling you, every business needs something. And that is, you never forget that. You pass by and you always know where this is.
Absolutely.
And I've even referenced it. I've had people that have never been down here reference it to me. You know, by the pink alpha or after the, it's almost like this line of demarcation, like, you know.
Right, where, exactly, before or after.
So it's awesome.
But we got about 5 minutes to wrap up. But
Sure.
So we really ramped it up production in 2011 with 2,000 cases. We've just shy of 15,000 cases, and many award-winning wines. I mean, the thing that's really shown and really made me proud is the fact that we've had some international competitions where we're showcasing our wines and getting a lot of merit. And in 2013, I was voted as one of the top 100 most influential winemakers in the United States, with only 3 of them being on the East Coast.
So what do you attribute that to? Just your, is it?
We had been, when our early wines, to get recognition, we entered every single competition we could. Just to try to gain, to see where we stood. To get some award-winning, and just also you're competing against competitors, and we got a lot of accolades, a lot of gold medal winners, double gold winners, and we started getting recognized by some of the writers out in San Francisco, and so this was a firm out of the West that made this ranking.
Okay.
And we had many double gold, best of class. I can remember being in the hospital with the birth of my son. And we had just got our awards back for a competition.
That's
and we'd
awesome.
done double gold back. So I was standing in the hospital after that, and I was
like,
oh, we just got double gold of this.
Well, you know your life's working.
And so with our Riesling and some of our Thirsty Elephant, our most popular wine, and Marquis, where we've gotten the best of shows and best of class.
Wow.
El Ataba, which was the best rosé in the country from International.
That's huge.
It was really nice, and it's shown that and validated like what I'm doing kind of made sense, because those are independent judges.
Sure.
Those are that's not just looking at sales and who's buying what. That's your peers reviewing essentially, and
it's
we were
putting
doing
you on
really
the
well.
map.
Yeah, and so we used that as a stepping stone to build and market, and it was kind of nice, and we carry some of our awards behind the facility here, and
As you should.
and I think what makes me most proud is the fact that that's from Lake Erie region, from the Lake Erie terroir, grown here, made here, expressed here, and is validated across the country. Now, we don't distribute across the country, but they're going out, and we're competing against the likes of Napa, Sonoma, Washington, Yakima Valley, all the good places where the other wines are, and we're standing up with them. So, I mean, we're a little gem that's still to be discovered, and I kind of like that.
It is.
It's not overdeveloped.
Dude, I told Bill had no idea what I was talking about, but his marketing person did. She was awesome. I think Andrea is her name.
Yeah, the new one there, yeah.
And because I was in the record industry. So I'm talking to Bill about like punk and DIY.
Yeah.
And it's going, but it's the same, because, you know, it's these little clusters of music
that picked up.
Yes, that get this huge influence.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
And I told Bill, I said, you remind me of this, all you guys are this like really cool indie rock scene.
Right,
that's happening in this area that really people are just picking up on
Mm-hmm.
in a larger sense.
Yeah.
You know? Like people know you guys, but now you want to build this wave to crescendo and then to slowly dissipate out.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're getting, and there's a critical mass that goes with it, but you have to have the quality to go with. I mean, it's nice to have the critical mass. You have to build that build-up and momentum, and we can't just jump into it, but you have to have the good quality product there, and I think it's all synergistic.
Everybody scales.
And us pulling together and working. And yes, it's micro Lake Erie region, but on macro, it's New York State.
Right.
It's Pennsylvania, it's East Coast, and we're a split trail by New York and PA. Although, like, I think I'm New York, it's my trail is New York and PA, and that's Lake Erie is where we are. But as New York lifts and PA lifts, that East Coast pull, people recognize it around the country. Now we distribute or get out, or people want to fly here to come and see. Yeah. And I'm sorry, when everyone is amazed when they first drive through here and you see 30,000 acres of grapes. And you don't realize how beautiful it is. And you have the rolling hills. It's a beautiful area. And other agriculture with cherries and peaches and blueberries and asparagus.
I say that this is a sweet, I've been through the Finger Lakes 1,000 times, I get it, but this area reminds me of Napa and Sonoma and the best areas in Vermont, southern Vermont. Yeah. It's this roll that I love. Yeah. It's this soft roll that kind of permeates.
Yeah, and our vistas are.
Oh, it's beautiful.